praise God that change is coming.
What up, world? Live on that with Mr. Be Great today, Lamar King Sr. Glad y'all tapped in with me. Another All Positive podcast. And today we have a special guest onto the show. I want you guys to help me welcome Darrell King to the show. Welcome to the show, brother.
How y'all doing, bro?
I give everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves, tell us where you're from, where you reside at now, and all that good stuff.
But I'm from Atlanta, actually from East Point, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta. I was born in Atlanta. I stayed in California for 30 years. I moved back to Georgia. Now I reside in Douglasville, Georgia.
Okay. So I brought you onto the show. You have a vast background in the penal system throughout this country. Tell us a little bit about what you've done career-wise and things like that.
Oh, I was in the United States Air Force for a total of 23 years. Air Force Security Police. And then I joined the California Department of Correctional in August of 1989.
Okay. So you military guy and went to the California Department of Corrections, which is, I think California has to be probably the largest penal system in the country. What are some of the what are some of the main institutions you worked at throughout your vast career? I
started out at Old Folsom, and then I went to what they call New Folsom, which is California State Prison, Sacramento. They just call it New Folsom. Most of the people that's familiar with it.
Mm-hmm. And how long were you in the system? How long did you work there?
23 years.
23 years on it. And Folsom is a world famous prison for many who don't know in the state of California. And being a veteran corrections officer in one of the most, I would say, at some point throughout history, one of the most violent prisons in the country. What was it like working there for that many years?
It was interesting because when I first started Old Folsom, you not only had to deal with the inmates, you had to deal with the officers also. Because everything in prison is kind of by race. Mm-hmm. You know, everything divided up in 3 or 4 different categories. You got your blacks, your whites, your Hispanics, and your others. Mm-hmm. That's how everything's divided up. Even on the side with the officer, you had to deal with that racism stuff also.
Yeah. And so being have to deal with all the different racial disparities, like you said, amongst the officers, was there a real threat from the inmates? I know it was a violent camp. Like each day going in there, how did it feel? Did you feel your life could be threatened, or were you very comfortable within the setting? How did that play out for you?
When I first started, I was kind of nervous about, can I handle this? What's going to happen today? And at some time, I got comfortable with it. Mm-hmm. I got the chance to talk to a lot of the inmates. You know, most of the black inmates, them the only ones that probably will come up and approach you and talk to you.
Mm-hmm. Really? Man, I had a little stint. I was a correction officer for about 4 months in the state of Georgia. I saw a lot of different things when the short time I was there, and met a lot of high-profile inmates as well. A guy who actually murdered the state of Georgia's governors back in the 60s. He got a death penalty converted to a life sentence, and he was where I was, a guy named Jesse Hires. But what are some of the high-profile inmates that you have encountered throughout your vast career at the California Department of Corrections?
Let me think. The first one that I basically remember was a guy named, trying to think his name. He used to be a basketball player for the Atlanta Hawks and ended up catching a rape case in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Thomas Payne was his name. Mm-hmm. Came out of the University of Kentucky. He was probably about 7 foot tall.
Really?
And I remember when I got to Old Folsom, I seen him on the yard one day. Big old tall brother, just muscular, just big.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who he was. I just asked somebody, who is that? They said, that's Payne. It didn't really click on me until later on. And I was working in this unit one night. They said, that's Thomas Payne. I said, Thomas Payne. Yeah, then it clicked back to my childhood. Thomas Paine was the first round pick from Atlanta Hawks.
Wow.
I remember seeing him.
Wow. So you came to the department in the 80s.
89.
89. So late 80s, early 90s. Was the gang culture as big or as a force as it is today back in the late 80s, early 90s?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I think today is kind of watered down in the prison system in California, because what they did was they started locking up all the gang members. California only recognized 6 gangs.
Mm-hmm.
Black Guerrilla Family, Aryan Brotherhood, Domestic Familia, Northern Structure, Texas Cynic, and the Nazi Lowriders. And the Aryan Brother, I named them already.
Mm-hmm.
They recognized 6 gangs. So in the state of California, if you're a gang member, one of them 6 gangs, if they get enough information on you, they would lock you in the SHU program, which at the time was it started at what they call Folsom B SHU. And then they opened up Pelican Bay State Prison. All the SHU members went to Pelican Bay.
Mm-hmm. So, and being that it was big on gang and big because California is the birth of street gang culture in the United States, and Folsom housed some of the most notorious gang members in this country. Were you there? They had riots. Were you ever a part of any of Folsom riots in your tenure there?
Yeah, I was in there about 2 or 3 riots. Big riots. They call everything riots now, but back in them days, it had to be a big one.
Yeah. So what were some of the things that fueled the riot? Because I'm pretty sure it was something that I know the inmates probably would say one thing, but you being an officer, coming from your side, what would you say would be the cause of those riots that you were a part of, or at least there at the time?
See, when I got to Old Folsom, it was the riot between the blacks and the Southern Hispanics.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout my time, I tried to find out why this happened, why that happened. Found out it was about disrespect. It started out with the Crips, disrespecting anybody at night, but that's the attitude of the Crips back in the days. I'm a Crip, I do what the hell I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So at a certain time of night, it was where it was quiet time. Time to lay down and keep the noise down, let people go to sleep or whatever. And you always got some people out there riding too late and started out disrespect. So the Southern Hispanics started taking off on the Crips, what it was. Then all of a sudden they made a mistake, said they made a mistake and stabbed the blood. And it went from there. And next thing you know, everybody's bloods got involved and it got ugly.
Man, I'm pretty sure that's got to be some crazy, that gotta be some scary shit too to be on, because I remember being there, like they only gave us a key to maybe the dorm we were on and perhaps the dorm next door. Like I didn't have a key to the front door. So if something popped off in there, all I got is a set of keys and a radio. And I gotta try to get out of there just as fast. Was that the same case with you guys? Were y'all well staffed in that regards as far as inmate to officer ratio? So if something did pop off, will any of the staff in threatening harms or in harm's way?
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes you got in the middle of somebody's mess, especially when they got them knives involved, and you had to go in there and try to do your thing. They had the PR-24 baton at that time. They didn't have pepper spray yet. Mm-hmm. They had the PR-24, and one thing I'm gonna say good about Old Folsom, they had people on the gun rail. Mm-hmm. You had 3 gunmen on the gun rail, and they were supposed to be watching your back. Mm-hmm. But everybody do that job don't do it well. Yeah. You might have somebody up there not really caring, not really paying attention to what's going on. So you pretty much have to protect yourself.
Yeah, I know I said it a lot of times, and just like I was telling you with the scenario of that. I didn't have a key to the front door. I couldn't get out if I wanted to. Did you have a feeling or a sense of feeling that you were locked up as well all those years, and you just happened to get to go home at the end of your shift?
Oh, every day you go in there, you hear that Old Folsom got a distinctive sound. When you go through that main gate and that gate slams, you hear boom, a lot of noise. And you say, then you go to another gate and it slams. So you go and do like 3 or 4 gates before you get inside the institution. And you hear it. Once you hear that gate, I'm in here. And you don't know what's gonna happen that day.
Yeah. Man, and I know Folsom is, I can just only, I've watched plenty of documentaries. I've heard, Folsom, the big behind the big wall or whatever and what have you. But for you to be there for, decades and spend time within those walls and within the confines with some of the most violent people, that says a lot about you. So what would you say you took away from the job? What was something that you took that you used in your life even up to today by doing all those years for the state of California?
Respect. You give respect, you get respect back in return. Mm-hmm. And it's not your job to go in there and punish somebody a little bit more. They're already being punished because they're locked up. It's not your job to go in there and add to their punishment. You do what the state pay you to do. You give them what they got coming.
Yeah.
If they got it coming, you give it to them.
Yeah. Man, that's deep, because I recently talked on about respect, and if everybody just learned to respect everybody, respect wouldn't have to be earned. Respect should be just given freely. That's something that should be goes without asking. And I know, even though it's an unorthodox or a very sensitive situation to be in prison, but respect is probably the number one thing that's on the list when you're talking about being, whether it be an inmate or an officer. So after being around that element, being around the so-called criminal element of society for so many years, what would you say is some of the solutions that we can prevent people from, being going in that revolving door in and out of prison and live a normal life as you and I would say do?
The number one thing I would say right now is stop glorifying prison. Stop letting these kids talk to people. Say, I've been in prison for 15 years. I've been in prison for 20 years or 30 years. Or I did 10 years to the door. Stop glorifying that. Stop throwing parties when they get out of prison. Get out of prison, you throw them a big old party like he went out there and fought a war, went out there and did something, got a college degree. That's the first thing we need to stop doing.
Yeah, that is, you said a mouthful then, because trust me, I know once I've got family members, they come home, we definitely gonna throw a party. And that's just something, it's almost like a ritual. It's almost like we do it without knowing. I know we're happy to see the loved one come home. I know we want to celebrate it, but I think we got to make sure that we don't end up doing things that are going to lead us back into that. And that says a lot from a person who's been there and seen them come in and out and see that revolving door firsthand. It says a lot about, your advice to that effect. But I couldn't see myself doing it. How did you get up and do it? I know you got to provide for your family, but how do you get up and go in there and like you say, you're going to be locked up with? How do you develop that mindset to be able to do that day in and day out?
My thing was, like I say, I respect everybody. No matter what race you are, I'm going to respect you. Until you disrespect me, then I'll disrespect you back in return. Everybody, a coin has two sides. And I'll respect you until you allow me not to respect you. Mm-hmm. Then I never really got into the real disrespect. But on occasion, you have to disrespect people to get your point across.
Yeah. You can't lay down on. Sometimes, they say turn the other cheek, and me, I'm a big person. I'm finna get away from you if I can, but I definitely ain't gonna tolerate just being blatantly disrespectful to the point where, it's questioning who I am as a man, and I think that leads to a lot of what goes on in the world today, because I don't think that the community is not built on respect anymore. The community is not built on morals and values. And I'm talking about just simple stuff. Just, kids nowadays, they don't speak when they walk in the room sometimes, little stuff like that. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Just being courteous. Even the old people in our neighborhood, they didn't have to take their trash to the curb. They didn't have to take it back. If we was out there hanging, even when we was in the street, doing things we probably shouldn't have been doing. We still had a level of respect for our elders. We had a level of respect for each other, because we didn't. The guns didn't. About the time the guns came into play, I was gone. It was time for me to go. I was out the way, because I didn't see the value of if just because somebody might disrespect me, I still don't see where I should have to take their life, or I should feel like my life should be taken as well. We can fist fight. We can do that. I believe in, some type of, boys will be boys type stuff, but when the guns come into play back home just now, a little young boy, 18 years old, senior in high school, about to graduate this spring, he was killed a few days ago. Shout out to the Havier family of Millersville, Georgia, because it's sad. I have a brother that was murdered from gun violence in the streets, and I've seen firsthand what it does to us. And I just don't know. I like you say, we got to try to find a solution other than, some other things that you've seen. And again, you've seen these things firsthand. You've seen how guys have thrown their life away and gone to do, like 20, 30, 60, 100 years in prison. Is there anything or any elements or any things we can do to try to prevent that from happening all together, Mr. Darrell?
I'm going to tell you like this, brother. If we don't start doing something real fast, we're going to lose about 3 generations of our young kids. We're going to lose them. And right now, if I can say what happened is that my generation kind of messed those kids up. We messed our kids up. Mm-hmm. Because we didn't make them earn anything. We gave them everything. We didn't make them earn it like my parents did us.
Yeah.
And all these people say, well, I'm not going to treat my kids like my parents treated me. I'm going to treat my kids a little different. Mm-hmm. But then you got to look at the final product. Like in my case, the final product. It made me responsible, made me respect people, made me go through life and respect my elders. This society we live in now is, the table's supposed to have 3 or 4 legs, but society is only living on 2 legs. Yeah. You got the young kids and the middle age, but we forget about our elders. Yeah. That's the wealth of knowledge right there. We forget about it. Yeah. And I know you remember when you was a kid, how many families you knew where their granddaddy or grandmother were living at home with them.
Yeah.
You didn't put them in homes. They stayed at home with you, and the kids and the mother and whoever took care of them, made sure they had everything they wanted. We never forgot about that.
Yeah, and like you say, and you would say your generation, but I would say my generation more so. My generation, I would say, is the last generation. I might like the very last generation. I was born in 1980. So I would say my generation was the last generation that got that real, home training. You got your ass whooped when you got out of line. Your neighbors could whoop your ass. You were never disrespectful to any type of adult, and if you did, you definitely get your ass. You know what I mean? Like, and when we became adults, we changed. We changed how we raised our children. We tried to give our children everything we didn't have, instead of teaching them everything that we didn't learn. And now it's all about material stuff, all about money, all about the flash, all about the flame. It's all about, we've lost the whole that family core. When you already know, when grandmama head get cold, seems like the family just everybody go their own separate ways and start doing their own thing. We don't see each other. Family reunions are not prevalent as much, especially when you don't have that glue anymore. You don't have Big Mama around. You don't have Granddad around anymore to kind of snap everybody in line, because everybody now is grown. Everybody feel like their way is the right way, but there's no cohesiveness. And it's sad. And I say it all the time that we can go out here in the world and say, well, we can stand together and vote for a president, or we can stand together and say, on Sunday morning and say we together. But oftentimes we can't even get together amongst our own family. So how can you go out here in the world and deal with total strangers sometimes, and you still can't deal with your own family? That's the puzzling thing to me sometimes. And I'm pretty sure you've seen it in the prison system. People who never got a visitation. They might did something that's totally wrong, but I'm not here to judge. But people sometimes will write you off. You're done. Just like you say with grandma and them, they putting them at home. The kids now are talking to their mama like they their best friend. It's a lot of stuff that goes on that really, like you said, if we don't get a grip and get a hold on it, we're gonna be set back like 3 generations. Seriously, you know.
Most of these kids are cell phone raised now. They raised by the cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I do a lot of volunteer work at schools. I go into schools and I talk to kids. I try to teach them some kind of respect much as I can, but most of the I deal with middle school kids and they 11, 12, 13 years old. So they set in their ways. They pretty much tell their mother and father what they want to do, what they don't want to do. We didn't have that opportunity. Mama put some food on the table, you ate because you was home. Now, well, I don't want that. I want this. I want to go out and eat. I want to do this. Kids have got more say-so now.
Yeah.
There's more respect inside an institution, a correctional institution, than it is on the street.
Wow.
You might not believe it. It's more respect.
Wow. But they'll come, but the thing about it is they'll come, them same people come out, and I know that they're getting younger and younger. The inmates are getting younger and younger. The system is replenishing itself almost. But they'll come out here and because they'll come out here and wreak havoc, shoot and do all that. But you ain't got that when you're on the inside though. You ain't got them guns.
No.
You know.
You don't have guns in there. You got to go your hands or you can go get you a piece of milk.
Yeah. So how long have you been retired from the state of California?
I just been retired 10 years.
10 years? Now you're back in Georgia. Anything outside of you doing?
Oh, I do a lot of volunteer work. I work with kids. I coach, I mentor, I speak. Every time I get a chance to speak to some kids about my experiences. I had a little program called Making the Right Choice. And I talked to them about choice and consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the joys but I always promise myself, I promise God, if I ever walk out of that prison with all my faculties, I was going to try to give back to kids where they don't have to go and see what I've seen.
Yeah. Well, hats off to you, Mr. King, man. That's amazing because that's what we need more. We need more, involvement. Me and my mother was having a conversation this morning. And like I said, my brother was murdered. And my mother, she felt some type of way about the young man that got killed, and she felt empathy for the young man's mother because that's the worst thing. I couldn't wish that on my worst enemy. To see a mother have to bury her child. Oh, it's enough she had to birth him, she had to raise him, and then she had to, put him in the ground. And that's something that's hard. And so my mother is now starting a awareness, mothers who've lost their children to gun violence, and it's something that a lot of people don't think about it till it really hits home. You hear about such and such got killed, like, oh, I'm sorry for that, but when it hits home, it's real, and I hats off to you, Mr. King, for trying to be some type of influence to the youth, because at the end of the day, if you can save one, you done did your job. That's what I've always said. If I can help one person, even with this platform, I've done my job. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
The gun is the new crack cocaine.
Yeah.
That's why I always put it. Everything crack did to the family, the guns are doing it now.
Yeah, definitely.
Every family has a member that was on crack. Now every family has a member that's packing a gun or shooting people, whatever. It's something about a gun that turns people's mind off, don't let them think. I got a gun, I don't have to think.
Yeah.
This gun to get me out of any situation I get into. This gun to do it for me.
Or they've been affected by it in some way and lost someone to some type of gun violence. And now with I know the state of Georgia just passed conceal carry. You don't have to, I'm in Texas. That law's been in place out here for quite some time. But I know Georgia just passed the concealed carry. You don't have to have a permit, and it's pretty much like the Wild Wild West, So it's it's gonna be like Wyatt Earp after a while. So I just think we just got to continue to try to find the ones that want to be found. Continue to try to give the ones that want to help. Because at the end of the day, you can't save them all, but we got to continue to try. We got to continue to try to lift them up in some kind of way, because it's getting scary out there. It really is. I really appreciate you coming on the show, Mr. King. I really do.
Anytime, brother. Anytime you reach out to me, I'll be there to try to help you.
Yeah, no doubt, man, no doubt. But any last words you want to get to any of my listeners? Any last words you got for us?
Parents, you got to become parents again. You got to be nosy. You can't just rely on your kids to tell you the truth. We lied as kids, they are lied kids. So you got to remember that.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much. Those are some great words, because they definitely, I definitely know I lied as a kid.
Yeah.
No doubt. But man, y'all make sure y'all go check me out, man. Mr. Be Great Today on TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. Great Today INC on IG. And on there with Mr. Be Great Today on Facebook. And I love you all. And you already know. Be great today. Peace.
Production. I love you, Poppy.